She wasn't supposed to smell like this anymore, not like pine and moonlight, not like home. But she did. Even in this sleek, modern glass and steel cabin, surrounded by cold technology and soulless decor, her scent still haunted the air like defiance wrapped in silk. It clung to the wood floors, the expensive couch, the damn throw blanket tossed across the arm of the chair where he sat. Ronan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes on the front door. He'd been waiting. Waiting in the dark like a ghost, not because he needed to hide, because he wanted to feel the life she built in his absence. The life she chose instead of the pack, instead of him. Every piece of this place screamed control, independence, power, all crafted to keep everything and everyone, including her wolf, at arm's length. He understood it. He still hated it. She should have come back. He gave her time. Letters, silence, warnings. He even let her ignore the bond tugging at her skin like gravity. She spat on all of it. Ronan didn't want to force her. That wasn't how he remembered her. Proud, wild, vicious with her words and her fists. But every alpha had limits. And she'd finally tested his. A soft click. The door. He didn't move. Didn't need to. Her steps were confident, measured. Each one bled with that same sharp energy he remembered. The kind that used to make his blood burn. Still did. Then her voice cut through the silence. I hope you're not expecting an apology. He smiled in the dark, slow and dangerous. I was expecting something, he said, sitting straighter. You've kept me waiting, Lily. He watched her body tense. Her scent flared, irritation, adrenaline, that undercurrent of something else. You've got 5 seconds to explain why you're in my home, she snapped, flipping on the light. Gods, she was breathtaking. Hair wild from the wind, lips slightly parted from the cold, fury dancing in her storm-gray eyes, her curves wrapped in a sharp business coat and tired confidence. Ronan stood slowly, letting her see the man he'd become. Not the boy she left behind. I gave you every chance, he said simply. You chose not to listen. I chose freedom. You chose to run. They circled each other now, like wolves used to dancing the edge of violence. You want obedience? She hissed. Find a nice little she-wolf who hasn't tasted the world outside your forest cage. He stepped closer, towering over her. I want the wolf who fought beside me when no one else would, who held her own, never backed down, until she did. Her palm shot out, he caught it, and the fire started. She struck first, of course she did. A blur of motion, all fury and fire. Ronan barely deflected her elbow, the blow grazing his ribs with sharp precision. Then came the hook, faster than he remembered. Her body moved like a trained weapon, like instinct had never left her bones. He blocked again, pivoted, but the woman was relentless. A knee to his thigh made him grunt. She twisted free from his hold like water slipping through fingers and struck again. Fast, brutal, beautiful. His blood roared, not from pain, from something far more dangerous. Pride, want, rage. Still fast, he muttered, circling her. Still feral. A shame you've slowed down, she shot back, grinning like a devil in heels. Or is the alpha crown heavier than you expected? He lunged, missed. Her nails sliced across his shirt, drawing a thin line of blood. And fuck that scent. Her wolf just beneath the surface, sweet with fury, wild and unyielding. The edge of her control was razor sharp. He remembered this version of her. The fighter. The spitfire who challenged elders and snarled at tradition. The girl who kissed like she might bite, and fought like she'd enjoy it. But this woman? This was something more. Hardened, refined, deadly. And it thrilled him. He slammed into her, driving them both through the coffee table. Wood shattered. She rolled, snarling, already swinging again. She got in one hit, maybe two, before he caught her wrists and pinned her beneath him, breathing hard. You done? He growled, chest heaving. Not even close, she snapped, writhing. Her hips shifted. She twisted beneath him, eyes flashing, teeth bared. And for a second, just a second, he wanted to kiss her. Not softly, not kindly, but the way wolves did when the world burned around them. "I didn't come to hurt you, Elizabeth." "Then you picked the wrong damn house." She arched hard enough to almost throw him. His grip tightened. She didn't stop. Gods, she never stopped. Her wolf rose up just beneath her skin. He could feel it in the trembling tension of her limbs, in the shimmer of her pulse. He wanted to tear it free, not to dominate, but to see her, all of her. But she wouldn't give it up easily, of course not. So he did the one thing he swore he wouldn't do. The alpha voice. He drew from the primal root buried deep in his chest, the voice older than laws, than vows, and let it bleed into his words. "Elizabeth Kane, I invoke the alpha's right. You will return with me. You will obey." Her body jolted beneath him like lightning struck her soul. He saw it in her eyes. That wild, wounded rage. The war between the wolf and the woman. The terror of control being ripped from her hands. And something inside him, something ancient and territorial, thrilled. Because even in submission she defied him. Even on her back, breathing hard, trembling under the alpha's power, she still glared at him like a queen stripped of her throne. And damn him, he'd never wanted her more. Elizabeth, beneath him, after the command. The moment the command left his lips, her body stopped being hers. It started in her chest, a deep, horrible stillness, like her heartbeat had been claimed by someone else's rhythm. Then the sensation crept outward, down her arms, her legs, her spine, like vines wrapping around her bones, binding, controlling. No. Her muscles locked, her breath hitched. Her wolf, her defiant, untamed other half, whimpered inside her. And that hurt more than the alpha command ever could. Not because it was fear, because it was recognition. Because no matter how far she ran, how much she built, how fiercely she fought to carve a life that was hers and hers alone, this command still worked. It still reached inside her and took. "You will return with me. You will obey." Ronan's voice echoed in her skull, low and graveled like thunder in a storm she never outran. And for the first time in years, she hated her blood. She hated her nature, the way it bent her to this man, this alpha, this boy she once bled beside, who now pinned her like a prize he was owed. Her teeth clenched so tightly her jaw ached. Her wrists twisted under his grip, not to fight him off anymore, but because resisting was the only shred of dignity she had left. Move, damn it. Get up. Fight. But her body wouldn't listen. It trembled, yes. It burned, it seethed, but it wouldn't rise. And her wolf just lay there, belly to the earth, tail tucked low, ashamed, subdued, obedient. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall, not in front of him, not like this. She glared at the ceiling, not at his face, refusing to give him the satisfaction of her pain. "I hate you," she whispered. It wasn't a threat or a scream. It was a quiet, broken truth. Ronan didn't move. He was breathing hard, still above her. His fingers were still gripping hers. But the fight had gone out of him too. "I didn't want to do that," he said hoarsely. "You left me no choice." She laughed, bitter and hollow. "There's always a choice. You just couldn't stand losing one more thing you thought you owned." Silence. Heavy. Charged. Then his grip loosened. He pulled away slowly, rising to his feet. She rolled onto her side, curling in on herself for one breath. Just one. Then she sat up, spine straight, chin high, like her body hadn't just betrayed her, like her soul hadn't been shackled. Ronan stood there, watching her, torn. Regret in his eyes, but not enough to undo what he'd done. "Plane leaves in the morning," he said quietly. "We'll get home by nightfall." She said nothing, because the words she wanted to say, the scream, the sob, the curse, none of them would come out. She would go, because her body had no choice. But her mind, her fire, that still belonged to her. and she would find a way to make him pay for this.
Elizabeth hadn't slept. Not really. Not after her body betrayed her. Not after Ronan walked out of her bedroom with the gall to look conflicted, like he was the victim. She packed without a word, moved like clockwork, cold, mechanical. The only evidence of emotion was the grip she had on her suitcase, white-knuckled rage in every step. She'd sent the email before sunrise, family emergency, working remotely, will maintain productivity. She didn't owe them more than that. She didn't owe anyone anything, except maybe a savage roundhouse kick to the gut for dragging her into this mess. And yet, here she was, boarding a business-class flight to goddamn nowhere with the man who chained her to her own legacy. She took the window seat, not because he offered, he didn't, but because if she had to look at the clouds, at least they wouldn't smirk like he did. Ronan sat beside her, perfectly at ease, broad shoulders in a dark fitted jacket, beard neatly trimmed, calm radiating off him like he hadn't just alpha commanded her into submission last night. "Asshole." "Sleep well?" he asked, peeling open the pretzel bag the stewardess just handed him. Elizabeth didn't even look at him. Like a baby, one with night terrors and unresolved trauma. He chuckled. "Still sharp-tongued, I see. I save my venom for those who deserve it. Congratulations." His grin faltered, just a flicker. She counted it as a win. The flight took off, engines roaring, tension wrapped tighter than the seatbelt across her waist. She pulled her laptop out and opened work emails, even though her eyes burned. Distraction was better than the smug warmth of him beside her. "You work too hard," he murmured after a while. She clicked without replying. "You built something real here," he added, quieter this time. "I'll give you that." Elizabeth froze mid-scroll. "You don't get to approve of my life, Ronan. You gave up that right when you became their puppet." His jaw ticked. "I didn't ask for this role." "Neither did I," she snapped. "But you wield it like a damn leash." "I used what I had to, Elizabeth." She turned then, eyes blazing, voice low. "And I will never forgive you for it." A beat of silence. Then he nodded, face unreadable. "Good," he said. "I'd hate for this trip to get too comfortable." The rest of the flight passed in a tense haze. Sharp remarks, silent wars, occasional glances too charged to be harmless. He didn't touch her. She didn't run. They both hated how familiar it felt. By the time the pilot announced their descent, Elizabeth had composed 3 strongly worded drafts of resignation emails she'd never send, and at least one imagined scene of slapping Ronan into the plane window. She tucked her laptop away and whispered without looking at him, "When we land, don't expect a hug or a shift in loyalty. You got my body, not my allegiance." Ronan leaned back in his seat, expression unreadable. "Don't need a hug, Lily," he murmured. "Just need your fire." Her hands clenched in her lap. Because gods help her, she didn't know if he meant it as a threat or a prayer. The SUV growled its way up the winding, frost-laced road. Pines flanked them like silent sentinels, tall and endless. The farther they drove, the more Elizabeth felt the weight settle in her bones. She could feel the territory now. Her old magic tugged at her ribcage. Her wolf stirred, restless, cautious. She hated that it still recognized this place as home. The silence in the car was ice cold. Ronan was driving like he had something to prove. Jaw tight, one hand resting on the wheel, the other braced near the gear stick like he was resisting the urge to throttle something or someone. Elizabeth didn't bother hiding her scowl. She sat rigid in the passenger seat, arms crossed, coat still buttoned up like armor. Her gaze never left the windshield, but her words came razor sharp. You could have sent someone else. A beta. A damn courier pigeon. Dragging me here yourself just screams desperation. I wanted to be sure you came, Ronan muttered, eyes still on the road. Oh, I'm here, aren't I? She snapped. Is your ego satisfied now? His hands flexed on the wheel. You think this is about ego? I know it is. No, he ground out, finally turning toward her with a scowl. It's about reminding a stubborn, reckless woman that her actions affect more than just her own inflated sense of independence. Elizabeth barked a cold laugh. Right, silly me. How dare I want a life that doesn't revolve around growling, submission, and dick-measuring contests in the snow? His knuckles went white. I don't care what kind of empire you built down south, he bit out. You still carry this blood, and that comes with responsibilities. She leaned in, voice like fire and ice. You want to talk about responsibility? You commanded me, Ronan. You used the alpha voice like I was just another bitch in heat. Don't, he snapped, voice low and dangerous. Don't twist it like that. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I hurt your delicate alpha feelings? Keep pushing me, Lily, he warned, eyes flicking to her mouth before snapping back to the road. You'll find I'm not as soft as you remember. You were never soft, just weak enough to need me and proud enough to resent it. Silence, not peace, never peace. The air inside the SUV buzzed, electric and raw, thick with a tension that had nothing to do with the pack and everything to do with the way they looked at each other. Too long, too hard, too heated. Even the lone gas station attendant they stopped at mid-trip had blinked awkwardly and mumbled, "Y'all fighting or flirting?" before scurrying off to refill the pump. Neither of them answered, because hell, maybe it was both. Maybe it always had been. They stopped at a small roadside restaurant perched at the edge of a frozen lake, the type of place with mounted moose heads, too many plaid shirts, and surprisingly good whiskey. Elizabeth ordered a rare steak and a glass of scotch, then a second, then something dangerously cinnamon-laced and on fire. Ronan stuck to coffee, bitter and black, sipping it like it was the only thing keeping him from saying everything boiling behind his eyes. He barely touched his food. She noticed, but she didn't ask. Instead, she laughed too loudly, flirted casually with the server, and ignored the burn in her chest every time Ronan's gaze lingered too long. By the time they stepped outside, snow was falling again, soft, relentless, and silent. The cold hit her skin like a dare. She didn't wait for him, just strutted straight across the parking lot like the storm wasn't screaming around them. Heels on icy gravel? Brilliant. Ronan knew it the second she slipped. Elizabeth, don't, she snapped, swiping her hand when he reached for her. Don't act like you care now. She caught herself, barely. One ankle twisted, the other fighting to compensate. Her breath steamed out in angry clouds. He moved faster than she could yell at him. Big hands around her arms. A sharp tug. She shoved at him, nails biting through his coat. Get off! You're gonna break your damn neck. Better than breaking my spirit by going back to that suffocating pack. He gripped her harder as she lost her balance again. Snow, fury, and 3 shots of scotch catching up to her at once. Before she could fall, he backed her into the side of the SUV, pinning her between steel and heat and his thundercloud scowl. You're drunk, he growled. I'm angry, she hissed, and sick of being treated like I belong in a cage. You don't belong in a cage, he snapped. You belong with us. I don't belong to anyone. They were too close now, breath mingling in the cold air, her chest heaving, his hands braced on either side of her hips, fingers flexing like he wanted to grip or release. He couldn't decide which. His gaze dropped to her lips. Hers flicked to his. The storm blurred. The cold vanished. The only thing that existed was this unbearable, soul-deep pull. His voice dropped. "I never stopped thinking about you, Lily." She trembled, not from the snow, but from the dangerous softness in his voice. "I hate you," she whispered, chest rising fast. "I know," he said, leaning in. And then, "Miss?" They both flinched. A young server stood awkwardly a few feet away, holding Elizabeth's forgotten coat in both hands like it was some sort of offering to a goddess and a beast mid-sacrifice. "You, left this. On your chair." Elizabeth blinked, pulled herself upright, cleared her throat. "Thanks." She took the coat, brushing past Ronan without another word, though her heart slammed against her ribs like it wanted to claw out and finish what he started. He didn't follow right away, but when he did, his eyes never left her.
Ronan shouldn't have stopped. He should have kept driving until the tires gave out, or until she finally burned herself out. But Elizabeth looked too pale, her jaw too tight, and even when she was angry, her stomach growled loud enough to draw attention. So, he pulled into the damn restaurant like a fool trying to do something right. Mistake number 1. The moment they stepped inside, she ordered a drink like it was a weapon. Scotch. Neat. Then another. Then something sweet and deadly that made her cheeks flush and her laughter loose. He watched the curve of her lips as she threw her head back and grinned at the server like he wasn't sitting right there. Like he hadn't spent the entire flight fighting the urge to claim her against that stupid tray table. She was trying to punish him. And gods, it was working. He didn't touch his food. Couldn't. He watched her instead. All fire and fury in that fitted coat. Her heels crossed under the table, her eyes sharp even when blurred by alcohol. He remembered her like this once, years ago, after sneaking out of a pack bonfire, sipping bourbon from a flask she stole from the beta's tent. He kissed her then, right up against a tree, and she bit his bottom lip until he bled. He never forgot the taste. And now she was here, older, more dangerous, and even more out of his reach. She didn't look at him once during dinner. And somehow, that burned worse than all the words she flung at him. He saw it coming before it happened. She stormed out, heels tapping recklessly against snow-packed asphalt, stubborn chin lifted to the sky like she dared it to stop her. Pride always comes before sense. She slipped. He moved before thinking. Hands around her arms. Solid, grounding. Then the fight came. Of course it did. She thrashed like a flame cornered by wind, spitting venom and truths he didn't want to hear. "You commanded me like I was just another bitch in heat." That landed, right in his gut. He didn't want to do it, but she left him no choice. She always did that, forced his hand, stirred his instincts until they boiled over. She never made it easy, never submitted, never backed down. And gods, he loved her for it. Even now. Especially now. She pushed, he shoved. Then she slipped again and he pinned her, caged her against the SUV just to keep her still, to stop her from tearing herself apart. Or him. Her breath hitched, her eyes locked with his, and it all went still. Just for a second. No pack, no duty. Just her. "I never stopped thinking about you, Lily." It tore out of him. Uncontrolled. Real. Her lips parted, just enough for him to want them. She looked like she might kiss him or slap him, or both. He didn't care. He leaned in. "Miss?" Ronan tensed, jaw snapping shut like a trap. The damn server. Of course. Elizabeth snatched her coat, pride draped around her like a cloak, and walked away without looking back. He watched her go, her scent thick in his nose, spice and heat and everything he still wasn't allowed to want. She was fire, and he was already scorched. But he'd burn again if it meant bringing her home. Even if it killed them both.
The SUV rolled past the ancient totem marker, weather-worn stone etched with claw marks and blood rites long dried. Elizabeth stared out the window as the scent of pine, snow, and wolf filled her lungs. It was too familiar, too tight. She didn't ask to slow down. She didn't look relieved. She looked ready for war. At the gates, wolves stood on guard, some younger, new faces. Others were older, ones she recognized. They stared as she stepped out, boots crunching in the snow, heels long since swapped for practical lace-ups. Her coat was open, hair windswept, eyes blazing like she'd just walked off a battlefield. She might as well have. Whispers rippled. She came back. The Alpha brought her himself. She's as arrogant as ever. She didn't care. The meeting hall loomed beyond the pines, log walls, high rafters, banners still hanging with old family crests. The heart of the pack, the seat of power and rot. Inside, the council of elders waited like vultures perched on aged bones. 6 of them. All dressed in fur-lined robes like this was still the bloody age of teeth. Each wore their rank in carved bone and silver, and all of them wore the same smug expression the moment Ronan escorted her inside. "Alpha Ronan," croaked one of them, Elder Marius, brittle-boned and serpent-eyed. "You've done well. We commend your firmness." Another grinned, yellow-toothed. "The girl always had too much wild in her, but we're pleased you were able to leash her." Elizabeth's laughter sliced the room like a blade. It was bitter, beautiful, dangerous. "Leashed?" she echoed, stepping forward with the grace of a lioness. "Let me be perfectly clear. If I'm back, it's not because anyone leashed me. And certainly not because a circle of half-dead patriarchs in fur coats decided it was time." Ronan's jaw flexed. One of the older women, Elder Tilda, sniffed. "Still sharp-tongued." "Still alive," Elizabeth shot back. "Which is more than I can say for your ability to lead." Gasps echoed. One young Omega choked on his breath, but Elizabeth held her head high. Ronan stepped forward, voice low. "Lily." "No," she said, turning to him. "You may be Alpha, but you're not a puppet. Or at least, you weren't." He flinched. She faced the elders again. "Let's stop pretending this is about the good of the pack. You sent him because you're losing control. You're afraid of change, of strength, of anyone who doesn't play by your script." Elder Marius hissed through his teeth. "Watch your tone, girl." She took another step. "Or what? You'll exile me? Kill me? Try to shame me in front of your little court of lapdogs?" Ronan's voice came like thunder. "That's enough." Silence fell like a blade. Elizabeth met his gaze. Her voice was softer now, but no less cutting. "You wanted me here? I'm here. But I won't bow, Ronan. Not to you, not to them, not ever." The air vibrated. Magic stirred. Somewhere outside, wolves howled in response, low, uncertain, restless. The elders stared, seething beneath their false smiles. But Elizabeth didn't flinch. She stood in the heart of the den like a storm wrapped in skin. And Ronan? He couldn't look away. The heavy wooden doors slammed behind Elizabeth as she stepped out into the brittle cold air. Her breath misted in front of her, but the burn inside her chest was hotter than ever. She'd faced down the elders, again, and walked out with her spine straight, pride intact, and 0 regrets. Well, well, if it isn't the ghost herself. The voice was sweet, venom, laced honey, and Elizabeth didn't need to turn around to know who it was. But she did anyway. There she stood, a fiery-haired vision with bouncing curls, glowing skin, and intense green eyes that seemed almost too bright to be real. Her outfit hugged her curves in all the right places, a tight winter jacket cinched at the waist, skinny jeans tucked into heeled boots, a crimson scarf to match the temper behind her smirk. Elizabeth didn't blink. "Alyssa," she said coolly, voice flat as snowfall. "I thought the frostbite would have claimed you by now." Alyssa laughed, a little too loud, a little too sharp. "Still charming, I see, Though it's funny how all your charm didn't keep you from running away like a frightened pup. Elizabeth's smile was slow, sharp. I didn't run, darling. I left. There's a difference. But I wouldn't expect someone with more lipstick than brains to understand. Alyssa's nostrils flared, but before she could retort, the doors behind Elizabeth creaked open again. Ronan stepped out, still wearing the weight of the council's judgment in the set of his shoulders. But the moment he saw the two women squared off, his pace slowed. "Ronan?" Alyssa squealed, instantly transforming. She practically launched herself at him, arms winding around his bicep, body pressing too close, too eagerly. "I missed you so much while you were gone. You didn't even call." Ronan didn't recoil, but he didn't lean in either. "Alyssa," he said simply, giving her a nod. "It's good to see you." He didn't wrap an arm around her, didn't pull her close, didn't smile. Elizabeth watched the exchange with one brow raised, arms folded. Then Alyssa snapped her head toward her, eyes gleaming. "Of course, you must know." She paused for dramatic effect, her smile turning syrupy. "After Ronan's ascension next week, we'll be officially mated. Alpha and Luna, side by side. Isn't it just perfect?" Elizabeth blinked slowly, then smiled, cool, poised, utterly lethal. "Perfect," she drawled. "You've got the clinging down already. All that's left is to master silence, obedience, and not embarrassing the pack in public. Shouldn't take too many years." Alyssa's smile froze. Elizabeth stepped past them, her heels crunching in the snow. "Oh, and Alyssa," she added without turning, "you might want to loosen that grip on his arm. Desperation wrinkles the fabric." She walked away before either could respond, head high, unbothered, and deliciously smug. Behind her, Alyssa gaped, then turned to Ronan, eyes wide with fury. "Are you just going to let her talk to me like that?" Ronan exhaled through his nose. His gaze remained on Elizabeth's retreating form. "She always talks like that," he said quietly. Elizabeth was halfway to the Ridge House, the old family den turned private residence, when she heard the familiar sound of boots crunching through snow with purpose. Too many footsteps to be a coincidence. She turned, already tensing, not for danger, but for them. Her mother broke through the trees first, wild curls spilling out from under a knitted hat, cheeks flushed pink from the cold, eyes bright with unshed tears. She looked exactly the same, just a little softer around the edges. "Lily!" The name hit her chest like a blow. Only her mother ever used it without it feeling like a command. Elizabeth barely had time to brace herself before she was pulled into a crushing hug, arms warm and trembling, her mother's scent all comfort and wild herbs and childhood. "Gods, I thought I wouldn't see you again. You stubborn, brilliant, impossible girl!" Her mother whispered against her hair, voice thick. Elizabeth clung for a moment, just long enough to let her guard drop. "I missed you too, Mum." But the warmth didn't last. The boots behind her stopped just short of the path. Her father stood tall, arms crossed over his chest, expression carved from granite. Gray streaked his once black beard, but his glare was just as sharp. Beside him, her older brother Connor mirrored the same stance. Taller now, broader, but with the same cold eyes he'd always given her after she chose her freedom. Neither spoke. Elizabeth pulled back from her mother, squaring her shoulders like armor. "Dad, Connor." Her voice was civil, barely. Her father's eyes narrowed. "So the prodigal daughter returns." Her smile was tight. "Not quite. I was dragged back." Connor's jaw ticked. "You never even wrote. Not even when Mom got sick last spring." The words landed hard. Her mother's hand tightened on her arm. "Connor, that's enough." "No," Elizabeth said calmly, holding her brother's gaze. "He's right. I didn't. I was building something that mattered. Something of my own." "You mean building a life with humans who'll never accept you?" her father growled. "You were born into this pack. It's your duty." "Funny," she shot back. "I always thought duty went both ways. But the moment I questioned the elders, you turned your back like the rest." Her father took a step forward, but her mother stepped between them, arms raised. "Stop it, all of you. This isn't how we reunite." Elizabeth's voice lowered, rough with something bitter. "I didn't come back for family tea, Mother. I came because I was forced to." Her mother sighed, stroking her daughter's cheek. "I know, but that doesn't mean I'm not happy to see you." Elizabeth gave her a ghost of a smile, genuine but tired. Then she turned her eyes back to her father and brother, cold, controlled. "I didn't come for your approval. Once this is over, I will be leaving." And without waiting for a reply, she turned on her heel and walked away, her mother's soft call following her, her father's silence, a blade in her back, and her brother's glare lingering like a storm cloud. She hadn't made it more than 10 paces before her father's voice rang out, sharp and final like the crack of a rifle. "You're not welcome in my household." Elizabeth stopped mid-step. Snowflakes drifted silently around her, landing in her hair, on her coat. Slowly she turned. He stood tall against the gray sky, arms still folded, face carved in iron. There was no heat in his eyes, no pain, just judgment. "You left," he went on, voice low but thunderous. "You shamed this family when you abandoned the pack, our traditions, your blood. Don't think you can come back now, tail tucked, and play daughter again." Her heart thudded once, heavy, but she didn't let it show. "I'm not here to play anything," she said evenly. "Least of all the obedient daughter role you've always tried to cast me in." His lip curled. "Then we agree. You won't stay under my roof. You can find shelter elsewhere." Her mother gasped behind him. "Darren, no!" But he cut her off without even looking. She made her choice. Let her sleep in the snow for all I care. Elizabeth's mouth twisted into a cold smile. Touching, truly. She didn't plead, didn't flinch. But deep inside, a smaller part of her, one she thought long buried, curled in on itself. She turned to Connor. He didn't even meet her eyes. Just looked off to the side like she didn't exist. Elizabeth laughed, bitter and low. "Well, I'm sure the visitor lodgings will appreciate the company. Maybe I'll bunk with some war-hardened Alaskan wolves and trade stories by the fireplace. Could be fun." Her mother stepped forward, her heartbroken eyes glistening. "Lily, please." But Elizabeth just pressed a kiss to her cheek. "I'll be fine," she said quietly, before stepping away. "I always am." Then, without a backwards glance, she walked on toward the heart of the Packlands, where guests stayed. Not family, not pack, not blood. Snow crunched beneath her boots. The cold kissed her skin like an old friend. And though every step away from the only home she'd once known felt like walking through a graveyard of memories, she held her chin high. Let them exile her. Let them strip her of rooms and roots and welcome mats. Elizabeth had never needed permission to belong. She would build her own fire, even if it had to burn through everything that came before. The lodge stood squat and wide at the base of the hill, where old pines curved around it like protective arms. Warm light spilt from high windows, casting a welcoming glow that did nothing to soften the sting in Elizabeth's chest. The community lodgings were where visiting pack dignitaries stayed. Outsiders, foreigners, diplomats. Not blood-born daughters who had once ruled these forests with a snarl and a wicked grin. She pushed open the heavy door, shouldering through the warmth and stale scent of polished wood, worn leather, and firestone. The reception area was mostly empty, save for a few muttering envoys from the Northern Territories huddled around a chessboard. No one looked up. No one recognized her. Good. Elizabeth walked past them toward the hallway of private guest rooms, her pride stitched together like a tattered flag still flying in the wind. "You got taller." The voice came from the far end of the hall, rough as gravel, deep as a growl, and unmistakably familiar. She stopped cold. He stood just beyond the firelight, a wall of muscle, shadow, and presence. Dressed in black cargo pants, a fitted thermal top, and combat boots that looked like they could crush bones on command. Gareth, her old combat instructor. He hadn't changed much. Same square jaw peppered with gray stubble, same hawk-like eyes that missed nothing, same expression carved out of stone and discipline. Elizabeth tilted her head, her lip curling into a cautious smile. "You didn't." He stepped forward, boots echoing quietly in the wood-floored corridor. The light caught the edge of a scar that cut from his temple to his jaw, a reminder from the same fight that once shattered his ribs and broke her collarbone. They'd laughed about it later. Sort of. "I heard the council dragged you back," he said. Elizabeth shrugged. "Kicking and screaming. As usual." Gareth stared at her for a long moment. Most men would have crumbled under that weight. It wasn't just his size. It was the gravity of him. Like his soul was forged in war and patience, and anyone who didn't stand straight in his presence would be swallowed whole. But Elizabeth held his stare without flinching. His nod was so small it might have gone unnoticed, but it was there. "I've arranged for you to stay in the south wing. End of the hall, private bath, clean sheets." "Still terrifyingly efficient," she muttered, brushing snow from her shoulder. "Still loud as ever," he said, without a hint of amusement. But his eyes warmed, just a fraction, just enough for her to feel the welcome he wouldn't say aloud. She stood there for a second too long, unsure of what to do with the silence. Then, "You still punching trees for fun?" A ghost of a smirk twitched at the edge of his mouth. "Only when I miss your whining." She laughed once, sharp and genuine. It felt good. It felt real. He stepped aside to let her pass, nodding toward the hallway. "If you need anything, don't." She paused, then looked back over her shoulder. "Missed you too, Gareth." He didn't respond, but as she walked away, her steps finally felt lighter. She still had no room in her father's house, no place at the table, but someone still saw her, and that, for tonight, was enough. The door to the room shut behind her with a dull click. Elizabeth dropped her coat on the bed and exhaled the breath she'd been holding since leaving the council hall. Her spine ached from tension. Her fists still itched with the urge to hit something, or someone. Her room was clean, modern, all dark wood and matte steel, with the lingering scent of pine soap and old stone fireplaces. A single window looked out over the snow-covered pines. She went straight for the bathroom. The hot spray of the shower hit her like a wall, and she leaned into it, hands pressed against the tile, head bowed. Steam filled the space around her, cocooning her from the world. Why did I come back? The answer, of course, was simple. She hadn't. She'd been hunted, cornered, and dragged. Her father's words echoed in her head, her brother's silence, the council's smug expressions. She gritted her teeth and let the water carry the rage down the drain. But not all of it. Not the hurt. not the ache in her chest that bloomed every time someone looked at her like she was nothing more than a rogue daughter who'd run away from duty. Eventually, she turned off the water and stepped out, grabbing the towel and wrapping it around herself. Skin flushed, hair dripping, she reached for her bag, only to realize, fuck. Her suitcase was still in the back of the SUV. Of course it was. She scowled and stomped to the door, wet feet slapping softly against the hardwood floor. She had just unlocked it with the intention of yelling at someone when... Knock, knock. Elizabeth froze. A slow dread curled in her gut. She cracked the door open, and there he was. Ronan. His hand was full of her bag, slung casually over his shoulder. His eyes caught on her, towel-bound, soaked, strands of ash-blonde hair dripping over bare shoulders and flushed collarbones. He didn't move. He didn't speak. But his jaw tensed. His throat worked on a hard swallow, and his breathing wasn't steady. Elizabeth narrowed her eyes. "What?" she snapped. "Judging me? Sorry, I didn't dress up for the dramatic door delivery." He didn't answer. His eyes were dark, locked on her like a man barely holding back a storm. Something fierce and feral stirred behind them. No, not now. She pushed the door to close it, scowling. "Drop it and leave, Alpha." The door almost shut, but his hand caught it. His other hand braced the frame. He didn't speak, didn't try to push further in, but he leaned forward slowly, drawn like a moth to flame, breathing heavier now, eyes flicking between her wet throat and stormy glare. "I didn't come here to fight," he said, voice rough. "But fuck Elizabeth." He stepped in, just enough to make the air shift, just enough for her breath to hitch. "I told you to drop it and go." Her knee cocked, ready to land a solid blow in the most sensitive of places. Then, "Enough." The word dropped like a hammer behind him. Ronan froze. Elizabeth leaned to the side and saw Gareth standing in the hallway, arms folded across his chest, the shadows clinging to him like a second skin. His face gave nothing away, but his presence, it screamed a warning. Protective, unyielding. Gareth didn't growl. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Ronan looked back over his shoulder, just once, then turned back to Elizabeth. His jaw tightened, but he dropped the bag gently just inside the door. Then he backed away. Elizabeth, still dripping wet and fuming, met Gareth's eyes behind him. Gareth gave her a single nod. Silent promise. He won't get close unless you want him to. And then, with one last look at the two men, one a storm barely held back, the other a wall that wouldn't budge, she slammed the door shut in both their faces. The echo rang out through the quiet hall.
Ronan found her bags exactly where they'd been left, carelessly tossed in the back of the SUV, half buried under her laptop case. Typical. Elizabeth stormed through life like she didn't need anyone, like she was untouchable. Ronan grabbed the handles, slinging them over his shoulder. He tried not to let it bother him, tried not to think about the way her eyes had sliced through the council earlier, cold and defiant. How her voice had dripped venom when speaking to that simpering redhead, Alyssa. The way she'd made everyone in that hall feel like they were small, irrelevant, foolish. But now he stood at her door, and nothing about her was cold. She cracked it open, and he forgot how to breathe. Water clung to her skin, trailing over the soft curve of her shoulder, disappearing beneath the edge of a towel that barely held itself together. Her hair, a wet halo of ash gold, framed flushed cheeks and those stormfire eyes. His body locked. Arousal hit him like a punch to the gut, sharp and immediate. Not just physical, though gods. Yes, it was that too. The sight of her soaked bare mouth parted in surprise. It unraveled something inside him. But it was her scent that did him in. Her scent was wild and lightning-touched, earth after rain, hot steel, a hint of citrus and the darker, muskier undercurrent of wolf that curled around his senses like a drug. His wolf lunged inside him. Mine. He clenched his jaw and stared at her, not trusting himself to speak. He could feel the change ripple beneath his skin. His bones ached to shift. His instincts screamed to claim. Not like this. Control yourself. You gonna stare or drop the bag, Alpha? She snapped, fire behind her eyes. He almost smirked. Almost. But he saw the flicker of something else in her, not quite insecurity, but misinterpretation. She thought his tension was disgust, like she expected it. You're not someone I could ever be ashamed of, he wanted to say. But that wasn't who they were. Not yet. As she pushed the door, he reacted on instinct. One hand caught it, the other braced the frame. Her scent hit him again, stronger now in the narrow space between them, warm and freshly washed skin, pulsing with heat and something more. Her towel shifted slightly, clinging damply to her chest, outlining everything. He inhaled sharply. I didn't come here to fight, he murmured, low and rough. But fuck Elizabeth. She was right there. Close enough to touch. Close enough to pin to the wall and kiss until she forgot her own damn name. His wolf clawed at his insides. She's ours. Take her. Now. But Ronan shoved it down. Just barely. His fingers flexed against the doorframe. He wasn't that man. Not anymore. Elizabeth shifted her weight. He caught the tension in her stance. She was about to swing. Again. And part of him would have let her. Just to feel her hands on him. Then, enough! Gareth's voice rolled in like thunder. Ronan froze. His wolf recoiled. The weight of the old warrior's presence pressed down like a mountain. Of course. Ronan didn't even need to turn. He felt the man behind him. A guardian. A wall. A quiet threat wrapped in steel and command. Protecting her. Just like always. Ronan took a breath and dropped the bag gently onto the floor. He looked at her one last time. Hair dripping, mouth set in a defiant line, chest rising and falling fast. He wanted to memorize her like that. Wanted to taste her defiance as much as her surrender. But he only nodded once and stepped back. He didn't speak, didn't explain. Because there were no words that could undo the choices that had led them here. No easy path back through time where he could tell the council to go to hell, where he could have chosen her over duty. Not then. But now? Now the pull was primal, irrefutable, dangerous. And it terrified him more than anything ever had. Because this time, he wouldn't be able to let her go. The door slammed shut behind him like the final note of a war drum. Ronan stood there for a moment, chest heaving, jaw clenched tight enough to crack. The scent of her still clung to him, to the air, to the space just outside that door, like a brand on his skin. His fists curled. He could still see the water dripping down her collarbone, could still hear the click of her tongue, the sharpness in her voice, the fire in her eyes. Mine. His wolf growled again, pacing in his chest like a caged beast. No matter how he tried to keep it down, the more time he spent near her, the harder it was to breathe without wanting her beneath him. Ronan. Gareth's voice was quiet, a low rumble of disapproval and command. Not angry, not aggressive, but present, grounding. Ronan finally turned. The older man gave him a look. Nothing more. No lecture. No mocking smirk. Just that unreadable, granite stare. And then he walked. Ronan followed. Down the hall, through the quieter corridors of the guest lodge. Down a private stairwell that smelled like sweat, steel, and old stone. They said nothing. Didn't need to. They both knew where they were going. By the time they stepped into the underground training arena, the silence between them had turned into something thick. The wide chamber was dimly lit with soft overhead lights, the polished concrete marked with deep scars and claw marks from fights long past. Thick steel bars and reinforced walls lined the outer rim, made to contain even the strongest wolves. The pack didn't bring guests down here. But Ronan wasn't a guest, and Gareth wasn't just a relic of the past. He was the man who'd taught Ronan how to survive. The moment the heavy door shut behind them, Gareth finally spoke. "You're fraying." Ronan stripped off his shirt, tossing it aside with a growl. "I'm fine." "You're lying." Ronan turned to face him, his muscles coiled, tense and aching. His wolf clawed at his insides, desperate for release, for action, for her. "She was half naked," he snapped, pacing. "Wet, angry, close enough to bite. What the fuck do you expect me to be right now?" Gareth crossed his arms and raised a brow. "In control." That made Ronan bark a laugh, short, sharp. "Don't lecture me. You didn't smell her." "I don't have to. I saw your eyes." That stung. Gareth stepped further into the circle, calm as ever. He peeled off his own clothes slowly, methodically, his silence heavier than any words. His body was still formidable, scarred and weathered, but hard as stone. "Shift," Gareth said simply. Ronan blinked. "You want, now." The command was firm, not alpha, but close. Close enough that Ronan's wolf twitched. Gareth didn't wait. His own form rippled and changed with terrifying ease. Muscles twisted, bones cracked, fur spilled over skin in a wave. One moment he was a man, the next, a beast of silver and black, larger than most, eyes glinting like polished jade under the lights. Ronan felt the heat boil over. He let go, clothes ripping apart as his wolf couldn't wait for release. With a roar, the shift took him, the pain and fire of it a welcome distraction from the chaos inside his skull. His skin tore, his limbs warped, and fur exploded from his body as his wolf came forward, hungry and furious. They clashed instantly. Fangs met fur. Claws scraped stone. The sound of snapping jaws and heavy paws echoed through the arena like thunder. It wasn't training. It was released. Violent and fast and necessary. Gareth gave no quarter, and Ronan didn't want any. He threw himself into the fight, snarling, letting his wolf scream through every strike. His body ached. His blood sang. For a moment, he wasn't alpha. He wasn't struggling. He was just instinct. Power. Fire. When they finally pulled apart, breathing hard, jaws parted, blood trickling from a shallow wound on Ronan's shoulder, they shifted back in unison, the air thick with heat and rage and something unsaid. Ronan leaned against the far wall, chest heaving. "It's not just a pull," he muttered, voice hoarse. "It's her." Gareth stared at him, sweat slicking his chest. His reply was simple. "I know. You think the council did this? Sent me to her on purpose? They didn't plan this." Gareth grabbed a towel, tossed it his way. "But they'll use it if you let them." Ronan caught it. "They've already chosen a Luna." "Then unchose her." Ronan looked up, surprised. Gareth shrugged. "She's not your mate. The one upstairs is." And with that, the old wolf walked out, leaving Ronan in the silence, soaked in sweat, blood, and the undeniable truth. She was his. And soon, everyone would know it.